circulates in such a way as to produce an opposing magnetic field which pushes it the other way. So this thing moves really, really, really slowly. It's incredible. It's the most cool thing ever. So I'm going to show you a couple of other illustrations of the same effect.
If it were to fall for long enough, would the copper get really hot?
Well, there's not a whole lot of current, but yes, you're right. Since the current's being driven around through a conductor, it's presumably warming up, and I'm going to show you a video of that in just a moment. Isaac, Nate.
Can you describe the motion as well? Is it moving at a constant speed, or is it going like this, stopping?
No, it's moving at constant speed. In fact, I didn't show you this because it's kind of bizarre, but you can wrap something which is basically like those little sheets. Not quite like that. This has a special thing wrapped around it, which is basically a thin film that has very small iron filings in it. And so as the magnet passes, you can actually see, though it's not the easiest thing to see, you can see... Okay, that one actually got stuck. So it's moving at constant velocity, at least if this is uniform. All right, so this actually has real practical use. Anyone know of any examples where these phenomena can be useful? Noah?
They use them in like emergency flashlights that you can shake to generate power for a light.
Okay. Any? Whoa.
Mail system, like put the thing up.
Not the same thing.
Anyone? Yeah, Nate.
Doesn't work.
Oh yeah, go ahead. So again, it's a little bit, I mean, you can think of any part of the copper cylinder here as the magnet approaches. Just think of a, let's say, a circular loop. And as the magnet approaches, the flux through it is changing, reacts in a way to oppose that. And that's true of every little loop as this thing goes down. Yeah?
Thinking about how it goes through the wires and trains and slows it down, that means in electric cars, it's like slow down brakes and like regenerate.
That's exactly what happens. Okay? So hybrid cars, for example, or electric can be electric as well. Part of the reason they're more energy efficient is, I'm about to show you, imagine that now this is your car wheel rim, and it's made of metal, let's say, and it's spinning. So this is spinning in free space. Okay, there's some friction that's going to slow down, but if I put this in a region of magnetic field, termed inductive braking, and it works on trains quite often. It's a way of braking on trains. Spinning train wheel, turn on an electromagnet. It's a really good way of braking on a train. But it's also true that it's driving a current around here, and if you can correctly kind of take that current and use it to recharge your car battery, that's what happens with cars. So when you're braking in a car, some of the, if it uses this mechanism, some of the current that's induced in here can be used to recharge the battery. So same example, but on a much larger scale. Again, this is such a fun demonstration. So, okay, large electromagnet is currently off. I've got a conducting kind of chunk of copper up here. It's on a little swing. So free space. Goes back and forwards. But if I turn on the electromagnet, side, it's a really strong magnetic field. It's going to have to stop. Is it like the coolest thing ever? Okay, I don't have time to show you this, but if I took that chunk of copper and made slits in it, so I can't drive macroscopic eddy currents around it to the same extent, this thing will just swing back and forwards. So I need a kind of macroscopic region to have circulating currents. And if you're interested, I will show you that after the end of the class. All right, so eddy currents. Yes, okay, last thing. Somebody asked about this getting hot. So indeed, you can make things hot. And way over time thing. That's all right. How many of you do any home cooking? Okay. What kind of stove do you have?
Induction cooktop.
You have an induction cooktop. Wow.
No, I don't.
Fancy. What is an induction cooktop?
It's a bunch of coils that generate a magnetic field, which then produces heat in a pan that resonates with the magnetic field.
So, sure. So, unlike a traditional gas or electric element stovetop, so gas, obviously you turn the gas on, ignite it, gets hot. That's how you cook stuff. With a traditional electric stovetop, you have a massive chunk of resistor. You drive a hefty current through it, there's a lot of heat dissipation, the thing turns red, and that's another way of getting heat into whatever you're cooking on the stovetop. But an induction stovetop produces heating by, as Noah said, it has essentially electromagnets under the surface, and you put on a conducting pan on the top, and then you change the current, and therefore the magnetic field associated with the magnets. There's a change in flux in the pans, conductors on the stovetop, drives current, and since they are resistive, they get hot. Okay, so this is called inductive heating. And just to show you quickly a nice example of this, let me show you the following short video. Okay, so there's the equivalent coil. Looks like a little bit of a solenoid here. It's going to have a changing current passing through it. This thing has sound, but I couldn't quite figure out how to turn it on. But let's see. It does have sound. Okay. So now I'm driving alternating current around that coil. It's a solenoid. It's producing a magnetic field. You saw last week sometime when I did this with that little loop of copper on top, jumped up because it's got an induced EMF and a current that's opposing the change. And this is what's happening here. So there's both a changing current, which induces an opposing changing current. The thing gets hot, and it's sufficiently strong that it's actually levitating this chunk of metal, which is now melting because it's getting so hot. So this is inductive heating. And in a moment, I believe, we've still got another maybe 45 seconds to go. Once this thing is hot enough that it's fully melted, we're going to turn off the alternating current in that solenoid, and you'll see what happens, I think. So at this point, you can see it's kind of changing shape as it's levitated, so it's definitely molten. And again, in a few moments, we're going to turn off. I guess it came from Russia. Oh. So there you go. So turned it off, and on the bottom now is the now solidified chunk of metal on the floor. So that's what's done with inductive heating. It's told this is often done in large-scale metal processing factories. Okay.
So metal.
Okay. Let's see. I was going to talk about energy transfer in induction, but I don't quite have enough time. So what I'd like you to do is read about energy power considerations in exactly the case that we just talked about in the example of a conductor being moved through a changing or region of changing magnetic flux. Okay, so it's a little bit involved again. Let me just quickly tell you what we're talking about here. That cartoon I had on the right-hand side, I'm pulling a macroscopic chunk of conductor through a region of changing flux, in this case because the region in where I have magnetic field is changing. In order to do this, if you think about it, I'm producing a current which is trying to oppose the motion. And in fact, you can look at the force on the current carriers in that magnetic field and see that it's producing a force that tends to oppose the motion. So if I pull on this thing with an external force F to the right, once the charge carriers are in motion, there'll be a force on those that's in the opposite direction. Okay? And the thing I want you to work through on your own time is if I'm pulling this at constant velocity, what does that tell you about the magnitude of the external force that I'm applying compared to the magnitude of the the induced force that comes from the current moving in a magnetic field? What does it tell you about the relationship of those two things if I'm moving at constant speed at equal magnitude in opposite directions? And so you can work through this in terms of figuring out the induced EMF, the current that's sent around the loop, and then the force on the left-hand side of that current carrying loop. And you can figure out something about the energy and power associated with that. All right. We'll skip that example and just set things up. What I'm going to have is actually end a little bit early today for a derivation that will be right at the start of Tuesday's class, which is the third case I mentioned as ways of changing the magnetic flux. Okay? So we've looked at the cases where the magnetic field is varying explicitly. We've looked at cases that can be quite subtle, where the area of either a real or imagined loop is changing with time. And the third and final way I can change the flux is to change the relative angle between the magnetic field and the area vector. Don't be surprised, this is going to bring us back to what we've introduced already, which is a way of producing a current generator. So we're going to come back and describe this quickly at the start of Thursday's class. We're going to take for simplicity a rectangular loop, and we're going to have the rectangular loop rotate, maybe at constant speed, driven by some external mechanical force, turbine most likely. We're going to have it rotate through, let's say, a constant magnetic field represented by those red arrows on the plastic in front here. So magnetic field is constant, both in direction and strength. The area of this loop is constant as it rotates, but the relative angle between them, of course, is continually changing. And again, the final way of changing the flux. So what we're going to work through on Thursday is to figure out what the changing flux is as a function of time, figure out what the EMF it induces is, figure out, based on maybe the resistance of this loop, what the current is, and then we've figured out how we can determine an expression for the current produced by a generator. So, I'm going to stop there. It takes a bit of time to set this up. Okay, so I will see you guys Thursday latest. If you want to come down and play with any of these things,